Ladies and gentlemen, you're requested to switch off your mobile phones or put them to the silent mode. Thank you. I would request you to please be seated. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Respected guests and distinguished dignitaries, good evening and assalamu alaikum to all of you. I'm Tayyaba Akil, and I extend a very warm welcome to all present here at the inaugural ceremony of the 3rd Islamabad Literature Festival, wishing all of you a delightful evening ahead. Honorable guests, I would request Amina Sayed, Asif Farooqi, His Excellency Martini Dorans, His Excellency Adriano Chiodi Cianfarani, Mr. Tom Leary, Mr. Anatol Lieven, and Mr. Ataul Qasmi to please come onto the stage. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I take pleasure in inviting Amina Sayed, OBE, who is the Managing Director, Oxford University Press, and Founder Director, Karachi and Islamabad Literature Festivals, for the welcome note.
Thank you, Tayyaba. Her Excellency Martin Dorans, French Ambassador, His Excellency Adriano Chiodo Cianfarani, the Ambassador of Italy, Mr. Tom Leary, Minister, Counselor for Public Affairs, US Embassy, Mr. Ataul Qasmi, Dr. Asif Farooqi, and I think Dr. Anatol Lieven should be here soon. He's driving up from Lahore. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and good evening. I'd like to thank our distinguished guests on the stage and all of you for joining us here today to the 3rd Islamabad Literature Festival. When Pakistan became independent in 1947, there was just one city in the country with a population of over 1 million. And that was Lahore, once a capital of the fabled Mughal Empire. Lahore was notable as a center of learning in the subcontinent, of scholarship, literature, music, fine arts, and the theater and dance. After partition, the throbbing, vigorous city of Karachi began to boom in the south. The sheer size and vitality of Karachi and the massive influx of brains and brawn from everywhere soon gave that city also a measure of prominence in the country's intellectual and cultural life. Thus, a couple of decades back, one could have credibly spoken of a hypothetical Karachi Literature Festival or a Lahore Literature Festival, but an Islamabad Literature Festival? That might have been regarded as a contradiction in terms. Islamabad was, after all, a new city, which had begun to be established on the northern end of the Pothohar Plateau, almost 20 years after the creation of Pakistan. It was referred to as a synthetic city, with no roots in the country's soil. Not so, ladies and gentlemen. There were other processes at work here. People began moving to Islamabad for jobs, for business, just as they had poured into Karachi just as they had over the centuries migrated to Lahore. But here in Islamabad, people found something different to the boom and the bustle of Karachi or the splendors of Lahore. They found in Islamabad a special beauty among these green hills and trees and some extraordinary scenic spots. They found a special kind of peace of mind here in Islamabad. People who came here actually came here and stayed. Josh Malihabadi and Ahmad Faraz, two of our greatest poets, came and stayed in Islamabad. The great Sadiqain's house, painted all over by the master himself, is in sector F7. Poetess Parveen Shakir lived here. Nuclear scientist and civil society activist Dr. Parvez Hoodboy lives here. So does political scientist Asim Sajjad Akhtar. And Pakistan's most famous archaeologist, Dr. Ahmad Hassan Dani, lived here and wrote of Islamabad being an apt successor to ancient Taxila, just as Pakistan itself was a legatee of ancient Gandhara. Clearly, this young city of Islamabad, with its special beauty and the deep peace such beauty engenders, is certainly an appropriate and a lovely venue for the Islamabad Literature Festival. The first of these festivals was held in Karachi in 2010. The inspiration for the Karachi Literature Festival, or KLF, was the Jaipur Literature Festival of India, which I attended in 2009. That acted as a kind of catalyst to crystallize my ideas. I hope the Islamabad and the Karachi Literature Festivals will similarly act as catalysts for others in Pakistan. We regard these festivals as a social movement that is inclusive. We want to include everybody in this movement. We want others to use these festivals as models and own and organize them in every village, town, city of Pakistan. They can be of any size, any duration, any name. But I would appeal to people from all over Pakistan to own and organize these festivals wherever they may live. They are not copyright, they are open source, so please take them to scale. I was delighted when the Lahore Literary Festival was organized, and the Faisalabad Literary Festival, the Rumi Festival in Karachi, and the National Book Foundation Book Day celebrations which are being held. We need more, many more. We have had 6 Karachi Literature Festivals, and this is the 3rd Islamabad Literature Festival. This festival is a literary catalyst, and it will expose audiences to big ideas and big stories. It is a literary and cultural show that brings together thinkers and writers from Pakistan and the world. Authors at the Islamabad Literature Festival range from a Pulitzer Prize winner to debut novelists. We are delighted that our audiences come here not just to listen, but to be heard. We can expect a barrage of questions in all our sessions. The ILF will feature an exciting 3 days of literature, music, poetry, art, shairi, politics, history, education, and this time we're having an English mushaira as well. And there's a book fair going on outside. So all the wonderful authors who are here today, 175 authors. If you find their books outside, and I'm sure you will, please ask them to sign them. We have a scintilling array of literary, artistic, intellectual, and political talent and achievement to regale us all over the next couple of days. There will be almost 175 authors, speakers, and panelists. 150 of them are Pakistani and 25 from different countries, Britain, France, Australia, and India. There will be 60 sessions and 22 book launches. The keynote speaker this year, keynote speakers are British scholar and professor Anatol Lieven, author of Pakistan, A Hard Country, poet and columnist Ataul Qasmi, American Pulitzer Prize winner Paul Harding, and poetess, Pakistan's beloved poetess Zehra Nigar. Over these 3 days, we will celebrate the wonder of books and help promote the habit of reading. So let me welcome you to this celebration, the 3rd Islamabad Literature Festival. I'd like to thank our partners who have supported us and without whom this festival would not have been possible. The USAID funded Pakistan Reading Project, the American Embassy in Islamabad, the Embassy of France in Islamabad, the Embassy of Italy in Islamabad, the British Council, the American Institute of Pakistan Studies, the Beacon House School System, Awaz, Getz Pharma, HBL, and Art Now. Thank you very much for joining me. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Amina. Respected guests, now I would like to request Mr. Asif Farooqi, founder Karachi and Islamabad Literature Festivals, for the welcome speech.
Dignitaries and excellencies, writers and readers, analysts and dreamers, ladies and gentlemen, Khawatino Hazrat, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings and a warm welcome to all of you, book lovers and page turners, as we gather once again to launch this year's edition of the Islamabad Literature Festival. You can compare it with a volume which literally turns up a new leaf this time of the year. But the pages of this book remain open and inviting throughout the year, all 365 days, and may I say, thousands and thousands of nights. This year, you are launching the festival in its 3rd year. As Amina explained, this festival follows closely in the footsteps of a similar program in Karachi, but it has moved on to acquire a distinct identity of its own. It is similar in spirit and purpose, but different in terms of its scope and features and contents. Standing here only 2 years back, Amina Sayyed and I were confident about presenting an idea, doing our little bit of advocacy for what we were convinced was and is a good cause, the cause of reading, a return to books, the joyous celebration of literature in its manifold forms and shapes. Things have moved on since then, and we need to speak of literature festival not simply as the stuff dreams are made up of, but we need to speak of festivals in the plural, as there is an increasing number of such occasions blooming in many cities. We borrowed the idea from a neighboring country, but it has now become something which is our very own activity, as people wait for it throughout the year. Every time we watch more and more people voting with their feet, coming to attend the sessions or just to hang around, talk about books, and sometimes even seem to be ready to start reading. The success, no doubt, is heartwarming, but we know that these numbers are still small. Problems keep on multiplying, and a very grim reality is revealing its colors only a few steps away from this lawn. It is the reality of this society and the challenge it is going through, the problems we read about in and as our stories. हमारी कहानियाँ भी तो सिमट सुकड़ कर रह गई हैं, कम होने लगी हैं. हम शायद अपने आप से कहानी के तौर पर कहने और सुनने के आदी भी नहीं रहे. पुराने ज़माने के बुज़ुर्ग टोक दिया करते थे कि दिन में कहानी न सुनो, मुसाफिर रास्ता भूल जाते हैं. हम रास्ता भी भूल गए हैं और कहानी भी. इस साल हम जिन नई किताबों की बात अगले 2-1 रोज़ में करेंगे, उनमें ऐसी कई कहानियों से तारुफ़ का मौका मिलेगा. इनमें पॉल हार्डिंग का नावल भी है, जिसे अमेरिका में पुलिट्ज़र प्राइज़ से नवाजा गया, और पाकिस्तान की सुरैया ख़ान की किताब सिटी ऑफ स्पाइस भी है, जो इसी शहर को एक ख़ास रंग में बयान करती है कि जैसे इस शहर में हर शख्स जासूस सुल्तान दर बगल की सज़ा काट रहा है. और इसी प्रोग्राम में हम ये भी देखेंगे कि सफ़रनामे का जोखम उठाने वाले मुस्तनसर हुसैन तारड़ फिर ये बताएंगे कि उनका अगला सफ़र कहानी की तरफ है. वो ये पूछेंगे कि ये कहानी कौन लिख रहा है और इस कहानी का सुनाने वाला कौन है, और वो फिर ये भी पूछते हैं कि अगर ये मुआशरा हम सब मर चुके हैं तो ये कहानी कौन लिख रहा है। ख़वातीन हज़रात, कहानीकार ज़िंदा है, या फिर शायद ये दहशत के दिनों में मोहब्बत की वो अंदोनाक कहानी है जिसको मोहम्मद हमीद शाहिद ने अपने मुनफरिद अंदाज में बयान किया है, और उसमें वो उनकी एक कहानी है जो किताब उनकी यहाँ पेश की जाएगी, खूनी लाम हुआ कत्लाम बच्चों का। इस जैसी कहानी, उसमें गांव के मास्टर साहब को महसूस होता है कि मंटो के अफसाने के रज़ाकार, वो अफसाना खोल दो, उसके रज़ाकार आज खुदाई फौजदार होकर मस्जिदों की सीढ़ियों पर खड़े होकर चंदा बटोर रहे हैं। और बलूचिस्तान की लोक रिवायात की, वही बलूचिस्तान जिसका अब हम नाम भी लेते हुए डरने लगे हैं, उसकी लोक रिवायात की खूनी बलाएं ग्वानको और ब्रांटो उनका शिकार पानी भी नहीं मांगता, नई पुरानी लाशें दिखाकर और लालच देकर उठा ले जाती हैं। बलाएं खून पीकर जवान और ताज़ा दम हो जाती हैं, और हम इस कहानी के किरदारों की तरह किस्सा अधूरा छोड़ देते हैं। हमीद शाहिद ने उसमें लिखा है, बस जी ये तो महज किस्से हैं, झूठे किस्से, गुजर चुके लोगों की घड़ी हुई कहानियाँ, उनकी क्या हकीकत। लेकिन ठहरिए, आइए इस किस्से के साथ चलते हैं और अगले दिनों में दहशत में मोहब्बत को ढूंढ कर लाते हैं, क्योंकि किताब का जलसा इसी मकसद के लिए तो सजाया गया है।
Thank you, Mr. Farooqi, for sharing such beautiful thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Her Excellency Martini Dorans, the Ambassador of France, to share thoughts with us.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Dear Mrs. Amina Sayed, dear Mr. Asif Farooqi, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and a great pleasure to be here today with you for the opening of the 2015 Islamabad Literature Festival, which is certainly one of the main cultural events in Pakistan and also in Islamabad, our beautiful city you just described, dear Amina. It's true that we are feeling quite good here in Islamabad, good weather and all. Looking at the panel of personalities attending the ceremony today, and looking at the program of the festival, we understand easily the reason of the importance of this festival. This is why I would like to warmly congratulate the organizers of the Islamabad Literature Festival, Mrs. Amina Sayed and Mr. Asif Farooqi. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to meet and share with the Pakistani writers, poets, their work, their emotion, and also their vision of the world. Reading the program, I feel that the diversity of the subjects which will be addressed by different speakers, Pakistani as well as foreigners, express the reality of Pakistan today, the reality of the world in which we are living, and also the reality of a world that we share. For all these reasons, the Embassy of France, and especially the Cultural Department of the Embassy, is a committed partner of this literature festival, of the literature festivals, because Islamabad is one of them. You mentioned the others. And I am very happy tonight to see among the outstanding Pakistani writer, the winner of the Karachi Literature Festival 2015 French Embassy Best Fiction Prize. I mean Mrs. Chandana Minhas. And I am very thankful also to our two French authors who came from France to participate in this festival. Our two writers, I'm sure you know them very well. I mean Mr. Michel Boivin. He's a senior research fellow at the National Center for Scientific Research in France, CNRS, Paris. He's an anthropologist specialist in Muslim societies and culture. He will launch this Sunday his new publication entitled Historical Dictionary of the Sufi Culture of Sin in Pakistan and India. He is with us today. I'm sure you will meet him in a minute. We have also with us David Waterman. He is a professor at the University La Rochelle, and he recently published his research on Pakistani literature, Where the Worlds Collide, Pakistan Fiction in the New Millennium. He is also with us this afternoon. So, distinguished guests, dear friends, thanks again to the organizers and to all the participants of this festival for the opportunity to debate, to learn from each other, and to have friendly meetings. So enjoy the festival of Karachi literature. Thank you.
Thank you, Her Excellency Martini Durans, for sharing your valuable views with us. Respected guests, now I would request the Italian ambassador, His Excellency Adriano Cianfrani, to enlighten us with his vision.
Thank you. Good evening, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here today at the inauguration of the Islamabad Literature Festival. Many thanks go to Amina Sayed and Asif Faruqi for organizing this event and bringing, for the third consecutive year, this inspiring cultural gathering in Islamabad. It is the third time this year that I walk the stage of a literature festival in Pakistan, being proud to confirm every time the support of the Italian embassy to these events. In February, I was in Karachi with Amin and Asif for the launch of the KLF. Then I went to the Lahore Festival. Today, it's Islamabad's. The Italian co-sponsorship of the Italian Literature Festival, as it is the case of the previous literature festivals, co-sponsored by the embassy, comes in this framework of a strong belief that culture is an essential key for peace, development, and growth. Culture makes every society alive. Knowledge keeps hopes for a better future alive. The inauguration of the ILF today, it's very timely, as yesterday the whole international community celebrated the World Book and Copyright Day. And let me quote the Director General of the UNESCO, Irina Bokova, who on this occasion said that books are the embodiment of creativity, the desire to share ideas and knowledge, to inspire understanding, dialogue, and tolerance. I cannot but strongly agree with this statement. Reading is fundamental not only for personal growth, but for the development of every society. It is key for knowing different cultures, for understanding the differences and appreciating them. It is essential for being global citizens. Books and more generally culture in all its expressions, be it written, visual, or audio, it's a bridge to the future. All the more the Italian co-sponsorship of the literature festivals comes in the framework of close cultural ties between Pakistan and Italy. The works of many great Pakistani authors translated into Italian or in English are contributing strongly to bridging geographical distances, allowing the Italian public to better understand Pakistan and its rich culture and history. And let me say that literature is greatly contributing to project a much softer, paramount and far-reaching image of Pakistan abroad, thus setting the fitting reality of this country. Indeed, the organization of 3 major literature festivals in Pakistan is a clear signal of how vibrant is the cultural scene in this country. During the previous festivals that I attended, I was struck by the outstanding quality of discussions, Literature festivals are indeed not only forums for launching books, but more and more they are platforms for free and open discussion on a broad set of issues, ranging from art to journalism, from cinema to foreign affairs. I'm sure that the Islamabad Literature Festival 2015 will feature as well lively and interactive debates, and I'm therefore personally eager, as we all are, I'm sure, to attend the multiple and diverse sessions that will go on in the next couple of days. In this spirit, allow me to wish to this year's edition of the ILF the best of success, and to all the participants to enjoy the next few days dedicated to literature, books, and cultural exchanges, a value added for today's and tomorrow's Pakistans. Thank you for your very kind attention, and enjoy the present edition of the ILF. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency Adriano Chiordi and Farani, for sharing your thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request Mr. Tom Leary, Minister Counselor for Public Affairs, U.S. Embassy, to enlighten us with his views.
Amina Saidi, Asif Faruqi, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum. It is my pleasure to be a part of the launch of the 3rd Islamabad Literature Festival. Speaking on behalf of my colleagues at the American Embassy, we are delighted to be a sponsor of this year's festival, which represents a high point on the capital's cultural calendar. We are equally proud to be a sponsor of the literary festivals in Lahore and Karachi. The U.S. Embassy's participation in this weekend's festival demonstrates our commitment to cultural exchange between Pakistan and the United States, in literature, the fine arts, and beyond. Our commitment to educational and cultural exchange is best represented by the alumni of our exchange programs who are contributing to this festival in several different capacities. Bilal Tanvir and Shadana Minhas, who are both fellows of America's prestigious Iowa Writers' Workshop, are participating in panels. Aisha Fazal, who studied education at Harvard University as a Fulbright Fellow, and Mariam Qasim, who was a high school exchange student in the United States, are moderating sessions at the festival. Natasha Atrosi, who studied fine arts at Montclair State University, also as a Fulbright Fellow, is on a panel. 25 of our young alumni of several different embassy-sponsored exchange programs are manning a U.S. Embassy information booth just outside this room. And last but not least, Dr. Faryal Aslam, who studied anthropology at the University of Hawaii as a Fulbright Fellow, is responsible for the performance that will follow this inauguration. The United States supports a variety of educational exchange initiatives here in Pakistan, including Fulbright graduate and graduate fellowships, undergraduate and community college scholarships at American universities and colleges, 1,800 scholarships for Pakistani students at your universities through USAID's Merit in Need-based scholarships. USAID, as Amina mentioned earlier, also sponsors the Pakistan Reading Project in cooperation with provincial and regional departments of education, with the goal of improving the reading skills of Pakistani children across this country. We are thrilled to bring to the festival our Pulitzer Prize-winning author Paul Harding, another product of the Iowa Writers' Workshop, as well as documentary filmmakers Alison Gilkey and Eric Nudell. Paul Harding, whose debut novel Tinkers won the 2010 Pulitzer Prize, will share his experience with emerging and accomplished Pakistani writers, and hopefully take a bit of Pakistan back to the United States. Alison Gilkey and Eric Nudell will screen excerpts of their film Lives Worth Living. The film pays homage to the American disability rights movement. Alison and Eric have been working with representatives of Pakistani disabled rights groups all this week. 2015 marks the 25th anniversary of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This landmark legislation prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life. Their film showcases the power of grassroots action to raise public consciousness in pursuit of equality and justice for the disadvantaged. I think I've done enough to highlight the work of the many Pakistani Pakistanis and Americans who have participated in U.S. Embassy programs. Let me conclude here and thank you all, and I hope that you enjoy the festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leary, for sharing your thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a slight change in our program as Mr. Anatol Lieven is still on his way to Islamabad. Therefore, we'll have the dance performance on Kashfa Naid Saiba's poem, Hum Gunegar Aurtein, in a while. आपसे ही करवा लेते हैं फिर अच्छा I was under the impression कि ठीक है जी I beg your pardon. Up next, I would like to call upon our keynote speaker, Mr. Ataul Qasmi, to please share his keynote speech with us.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my speech is in two parts. First part is in English and second part is in Urdu. First part is over. अब मेरा उर्दू का पार्ट शुरू होता है. उसकी वजह भी सुन लें कि वो एक फ्रांसीसी तालिब इल्म अंग्रेज़ी का कोर्स करने के लिए लंदन गया और वहाँ 2 साल के बाद जब वापस जाने लगा तो अपने उस्ताद से कहा कि मैं वापस जा रहा हूँ अपने वतन, तो वहाँ मेरे लायक कोई खिदमत हो तो मुझे बताएं. उसने कहा सिर्फ एक छोटी सी खिदमत है कि वहाँ अगर तुमसे कोई पूछे कि तुमने अंग्रेज़ी किससे सीखी है तो मेरा नाम नहीं लेना. मैंने भी जिन उस्तादों से अंग्रेज़ी सीखी थी उन्होंने भी मुझे यही हिदायत की थी और वो उस्ताद इस तरह के थे कि अगर वो घड़ी ईजाद करते तो वो घड़ी इस तरह की होनी थी कि उसने दूसरों से टाइम पूछना था उसने. तो बहरहाल ये एक मसला है ये मेरे साथ और इसकी वजह ये है कि ये मैं बचपन से देखता चला रहा हूँ कि हमारे यहाँ अंग्रेज़ी जो है वो इंतहाई ज़रूरी है और मैं भी यही समझता हूँ कि इसके बगैर हमारा काम नहीं चल सकता. ना हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं और ना हम दुनिया की जो महज़्ज़ब कौमें हैं उनके बराबर में हम आ सकते हैं. हम लाख उर्दू कहें, ये बात मैं बाद में करता हूँ मैं. तो असल में वो हमारे एक हेड क्लर्क होते थे एक, तो हम जब कॉलेज में पढ़ते थे तो एप्लीकेशन लेके जाते उनके पास अंग्रेज़ी में लिखी हुई. तो अब वो पहले ऐनक लगाते, ऐनक के शीशे साफ़ करते, ऐनक लगाते, फिर शुरू से लेके आखिर तक वो सारी एप्लीकेशन पढ़ते. बज़ाहिर लगता कि पढ़ रहे हैं. आखिर में ऐनक उतार के रखते और कहते दरख्वास्त मैंने तुम्हारी पढ़ ली है, अब बताओ तुम चाहते क्या हो. तो इस तरह के तो हमारे जो थे वास्ता पड़ता था. मैं जब जा रहा था अमेरिका 1970 में और मैंने बाई रोड सफ़र किया यूरोप तक, बहुत मेरी ज़िंदगी का यादगार सफ़र है और यादगार मेरा सफ़रनामा भी है, शौक़ आवारगी. तो रास्ते में वो बेचारे मज़दूर मिलते थे जो दुबई किसी ने जाना, कभी किसी ने मुख्तलिफ़ मुल्कों में यूरोप में घुसने की कोशिश करना जॉब के लिए. उनमें जो एक सबसे जाहिल आदमी था तो मैं उसको प्रोफेसर साहब कहा करता था मैं उसको. और वो क्या करता था जब कोई बॉर्डर करीब आता था तो सूट वूट पहनता था जो उसने घड़े में से निकाला होता था, वटो वट बिल्कुल, और अज़ारबंद से मिलती जुलती कोई वो टाई बांध देता था ताकि मोज़ज़ दिखाई दे. और वहाँ जाके कोई गोरा नज़र आता तो उसे रोक के उसे कहता डू यू नो इंग्लिश. वो कहता यस. उसके बाद ये मेरे पास आ जाता, काज़मी साहब इसकी शक्ल देखिए, कहता मुझे अंग्रेज़ी आती है. तो ये लतीफ़े सारे रास्ते में होते रहे थ्रू आउट. असल में बात ये है कि ज़ुबान जो है ना हमारे यहाँ ये स्टेटस सिंबल बन के रह गई है. पहले नंबर पर अंग्रेज़ी है, जो अंग्रेज़ी अफोर्ड कर सकता है वो अंग्रेज़ी बोलता है. दूसरे नंबर पर उर्दू है, जो उर्दू अफोर्ड कर सकता है वो उर्दू बोलता है. तीसरे नंबर पर हमारी पाकिस्तानी ज़ुबानें हैं, पंजाबी है, पश्तो है, सिंधी है, बलोची है. तो जो गरीब ना उर्दू बोल सकता है ना अंग्रेज़ी बोल सकता है वो फिर मजबूरन اپنی دال دلیا کرتا ہے اپنی زبان بول کے. اور اب یہ کمپلیکس بنتا جا رہا ہے پوری قوم کا. مثلا یہ جو ہمارے گھروں میں جو لوگ کام کرتے ہیں, اب یہ تو بیچارے چٹے ان پڑھ ہوتے ہیں, تو چنانچہ آپ ان کے ساتھ, مثلا میں ان کے ساتھ ہمیشہ پنجابی میں بات کرتا ہوں, وہ ہمیشہ میرے ساتھ اردو میں بات کرتے ہیں, اور میرا بلڈ پریشر ہائی ہو جاتا ہے ان کی اردو سن کے, آپ یقین کریں. اور میں نے کئی دفعہ کہا, میں نے کہا میں تمہاری تنخواہ روک لوں گا اگر تم نے آئندہ میرے ساتھ اردو میں بات کی. انہیں یہ بھی منظور ہے, لیکن تو یہ ایک کمپلیکس بن گیا ہے. اور اوپر سے ہمارے ہاں ایک عجیب چیز بن گئی ہے کہ ہم انگریزی کی بات کرتے ہیں, بلکہ کئی اردو کی بات کرتے ہیں, لیکن اور اس کے علاوہ اب ایک اور فیشن جو ہے, اب جو ہماری پاکستانی زبانیں ہیں یہ بھی فیشن کا حصہ بن گئی ہیں. یا انگریزی کی بات کرتے ہیں یا ہم اپنی جو پاکستانی زبانیں ہیں ان کے فروغ کی بات کرتے ہیں, لیکن ان کے فروغ کی صرف بات کرتے ہیں, نہ ہم اپنے بچوں سے وہ زبان بولتے ہیں, نہ ہم اپنے بچوں کو وہ زبان پڑھاتے ہیں. تو یہ بہت سارا یہ دوگلا پن ہے جو ہمارے اندر آ گیا. اور میں چونکہ مڈل کلاسیہ ہوں, اور مڈل کلاسیہ جو ہوتا ہے وہ ہر اس طرف جانے کی کوشش کرتا ہے جدھر سے اسے کچھ فائدہ نظر آتا ہو. چنانچہ میں انگریزی میں بھی منہ مارتا ہوں, اردو میں بھی, پنجابی, جہاں جس کی ضرورت ہوتی ہے اس کے مطابق میں کرتا ہوں. وہ مڈل کلاسیہ کی مثال جو ہے نا, وہ ایک کالج کے باہر ایک کلفیاں بیچا کرتا تھا ریڑھی پہ. تو ایک دن کالج کے نوجوان باہر نکلے تو شرارت سوجی, انہوں نے حملہ کر دیا ریڑھی پہ, اور کلفیاں نکال کے انہوں نے کھانی شروع کر دی. تو انہوں نے وہ کلفیوں والی ریڑھی پہ حملہ کر دیا اور کلفیاں نکال کے انہوں نے کھانا شروع کر دی. وہ کلفی والے نے جب دیکھا کہ یہ تو ساری کھا چلے ہیں, خود وہ بھی پل پڑا اور اس نے بھی کلفیاں کھانی شروع کر دی. وہ کہنے لگا میں جتنی کلفیاں کھا لوں گا یہی میری بچت ہے. تو ہم سب کا بھی یہی معاملہ ہے. ہم جب دیکھتے ہیں کہ ہر طرف لوٹ مار ہے تو پھر ہم بھی کہتے ہیں کہ چلو اپنا ہی مال چاہے کھائیں, اپنے آپ کو ہی برباد کریں, اپنے آپ کو ہی خنجر ماریں, لیکن یہی اس میں ہمارا فائدہ ہے. چلیں, یہ بات بہت لمبی ہو گئی. اب تھوڑا سا یہ میں اس کے بارے میں بعد میں آؤں گا. اچھا ٹھیک ہے, اوکے. ہاں مجھے بڑی ہنسی آئی ہے ان کا وہ میسج پڑھ کے. بتا دوں وہ نہیں, تو وہ یہ ہے کہ ایک زمانہ تھا کہ ہمارے ہاں ادبی تحریکیں ہوتی تھیں, بہت ساری ادبی تحریکیں. ترقی پسند تحریک ہوتی تھی, لایانیت کی ایک تحریک تھی, ہلکا ارباب ذوق کی بھی ایک تحریک تھی, جدیدیت کی تحریک تھی, رومانیت کی ایک تحریک تھی, پاکستانی ادب کی ایک تحریک تھی. تو میں فیل کرتا ہوں کہ اپنا وہ جو تحریکیں جو تھیں وہ اب آہستہ آہستہ اس کی جگہ پہ ایک جیسے وہ ہو جاتا ہے نا, ایک اجماع امت ہو جاتا ہے. یوں لگتا ہے کہ جیسے سارے پڑھنے والے کسی ایک خیال پر متفق ہوتے چلے جا رہے ہیں, اور وہ خیال جو ہے وہ علم کا حصول ہے, وہ خیال تخلیق کا اصول ہے, اور اس میں وہ کوئی اس طرح کی وہ مجھے زیادہ کنٹروورسی جو ہے وہ نظر نہیں آتی. وہ مجھے وہ یاد آتا ہے, وہ ایک بزرگوار جو تھے وہ ایک کتاب پڑھ رہے تھے, تو ان کے پوتے نے پوچھا کہ دادا ابو آپ کیا پڑھ رہے ہیں؟ کہنے لگے بیٹے تاریخ کی کتاب پڑھ رہا ہوں. اس نے کہا دادا ابو یہ تو سیکس پر ہے کتاب. کہنے لگے بیٹے اب سیکس بھی میرے لیے تاریخ ہی بن گئی ہے. تو یہ ساری جتنی تحریکیں تھیں یہ بھی اب تاریخ کا حصہ بن گئی ہیں. اب یہاں اس طرح کی ہمیں وہ جنگ بندی جو ہے وہ نظر نہیں آتی جو کسی زمانے میں. مجھے یاد ہے ہلکا ارباب ذوق, اس میں دو حصے بن گئے, ایک ہلکا ارباب ذوق ادبی اور ایک ہلکا ارباب ذوق سیاسی, اور بہت خوفناک قسم کی جنگ ان میں ہوتی تھی. اور میرا ایک بہت پیارا قریبی دوست میرا وہ ہلکا ارباب ذوق سیاسی کا رکن تھا وہ, اور وہ خونی انقلاب کا بہت بڑا حامی تھا کہ جب تک اس ملک میں خونی انقلاب نہیں آئے گا یہ ملک نہیں سنورے گا. لیکن بزدل انتہائی، یعنی اس کے سامنے اگر مرغی ذبح کی جاتی بے ہوش ہو جاتا تھا وہ. تو لوگ اس کی تقریروں سے بڑے تنگ تھے. تقریر کرتا تھا، اس کے منہ سے جھاگ بھی نکلتی تھی ساتھ. مجھے اس کی تقریر پہ اعتراض نہیں تھا، مجھے اس کے منہ سے جو چھینٹے اڑ کے مجھ پر گرتے تھے مجھے اس کا اعتراض زیادہ تھا. بہرحال ایک دوست کہنے لگا یار اس کو منہ کیسے بند کریں اس کا. میں نے کہا یار وہ تقریر کرتا ہے، کرنے دو اس کو. کہنے لگا نہیں یار یہ اوور ہو گیا بہت زیادہ. تو میں نے کہا، وہ کہنے لگا کہ میرے ذہن میں ایک تجویز آئی ہے، وہ یہ کہ ٹولنٹن مارکیٹ سے میں ایک مرغی خریدوں گا اور جب یہ تقریر کرنے لگے گا تو وہ میں ذبح کروں گا تو یہ چپ ہو جائے گا، بے ہوش ہو جائے گا. یہ میں نے کہا یار یہ بڑا لمبا پروسیجر ہے اور مناسب نہیں لگتا. حلقہ ارباب ذوق ایک ادبی تنظیم ہے، بڑا مقام ہے اس کا، اور پھر یہ کھیچل بھی بہت زیادہ ہے کہ تم پہلے یہاں سے اٹھ کے جا کے ٹولنٹن مارکیٹ جاؤ، وہاں کوئی اچھی نسل کی مرغی تلاش کرو، پھر چھری ڈھونڈو، چھری ڈھونڈ کے پھر تم سیڑھیاں چڑھ کے اوپر آؤ، پاکٹی آؤ، وائی ایم سی اے میں ہوتا تھا ان کا، وائی ایم سی اے میں آؤ اور اب انتظار کرو کہ کب وہ تقریر شروع کرتا ہے. اور جب وہ تقریر شروع کرے تو تم سب کے سامنے چھری پکڑ کے تو اس کی وہ پھیرو تو وہ بڑا عجیب لگے گا، چھینٹے بھی ادھر ادھر پڑیں گے. کہنے کا پھر کیا علاج کیا جائے؟ میں نے کہا بڑا سمپل سا علاج ہے، جو پیسے مرغی پہ خرچ ہونے ہیں نا، جب وہ تقریر کرنے لگے اس کی جیب میں ڈال دینا، بولے گا ہی نہیں وہ. تو اس طرح کے بھی انقلابی، سکہ بند انقلابی جنہیں کہتے تھے، ان کا منہ سکوں سے بند کر دیا جاتا تھا. اسی طرح سکہ بند اسلام پسند بھی ہوتے تھے، ان کا منہ بھی سکوں سے بند کر دیا جاتا تھا. تو یہ ہمارے یہ سکہ بند قسم کے جو لوگ تھے ان دنوں بہت زیادہ عام تھے یہ. تو بہرحال وہ بھی ایک دور تھا، وہ بھی گزر گیا. لیکن آج جس دور سے ہم گزر رہے ہیں، میرے خیال میں یہ ایک بہت ہی بظاہر تو میں چونکہ آپٹیمسٹ ہوں بہت زیادہ، میں نے تو کبھی بھی مایوس نہیں ہوا، میں نیور. اور آپ دیکھ لیں کہ حالات آہستہ آہستہ بہتری کی طرف جا رہے ہیں اور ابھی انشاءاللہ اور زیادہ بہتری کی طرف جائیں گے. لیکن اگر ہم پاکستان کو بہت خوبصورت ملک دیکھنا چاہتے ہیں تو پھر جس طرح امینہ سید اور دوسرے لوگ اس طرح کی محفلیں منعقد کرتے ہیں، یہ محفلیں ہمیں منعقد کرنا پڑیں گی. اور امینہ سے مجھے گلہ ہے کہ ان محفلوں کا آغاز میں نے کیا لاہور میں پنجاب آرٹس کونسل کے چیئرمین کے طور پہ. اس کے بعد پھر یہ سارے ملک میں سوائے کراچی کے، کراچی میں پہلے سے ہو رہی تھی، تو یہ سلسلہ شروع ہوا. میں نے 5 انٹرنیشنل کانفرنسیں کروائی ہیں وہاں اور 6ٹی کی تیاری ہو رہی ہے بہرحال. تو میں یہ سمجھتا ہوں کہ ہمیں مذہب کے اجارہ داروں نے مار دیا ہمیں پکڑ کے، ہمیں پوری دنیا میں کسی کو منہ دکھانے کے قابل نہیں چھوڑا. اب ہمیں اس کی تلافی اسی صورت میں کرنا ہوگی کہ ایک سیکولرزم جو ہے اس کو اپنانا ہوگا. سیکولرزم جھوٹا موٹا سیکولرزم نہیں، صحیح معنوں میں سیکولرزم کہ جس میں ہر بندے کو جس طرح کی وہ زندگی گزارنا چاہتا ہے وہ گزارے. اور یہ کیسے ہوگا؟ یہ کتاب سے ہوگا، یہ کلچر سے ہوگا، یہ اس طرح کی محفلوں سے ہوگا. جب آپ کے دماغ روشن ہوں گے تو پھر یہ تاریکیاں جو ہیں وہ چھٹ جائیں گی ہمیشہ کے لیے. کافی اچھا. تو بہرحال میں یہ نہیں آپ نہیں سمجھے. ہاں میں ایک بات اور میں نے کہنی تھی، وہ میں خود شارٹ کر رہا تھا. میں نے کہا کہ میں زیادہ وقت مجھے نہیں لینا چاہیے. میں چونکہ ادیبوں میں رہتا ہوں 24 گھنٹے اور یہاں بھی میرے سارے ادیب دوست بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں، میری آپا بیٹھی ہوئی ہیں اور سارے میرے دوست ہیں، ان میں اکثریت. تو میں ایک جو خرابی دیکھتا ہوں ان کو چھوڑ کے، وہ یہ ہے کہ ہم سب نے جس طرح انکم ٹیکس میں ایک ہوتا ہے نا خود تشخیصی نظام، کہ خود ہی ہم کہتے ہیں کہ ہمیں اتنا انکم ٹیکس دینا ہے، تو ہم نے اپنا مقام بھی شعر و ادب میں خود متعین کر لیا ہے. اور اس پر یعنی اگر کوئی ہم سے اختلاف کرے، آپ یقین کریں آپ کسی شاعر کو کہہ دیں کہ یار غالب تم سے بڑا شاعر ہے، 7 نسلوں تک دشمنی چلے گی یہ، ہاں اس سے کم نہیں بالکل. تو یہ ہم سب جو ہیں ملک الشعراء ہیں، ہم سب کے سب جو ہیں پاکستان کے چوٹی کے ادیب ہیں. اور اسی چکر میں پھر ہم یہ بننے کے لیے ہر قسم کی کلا بازی لگانے کے لیے بھی تیار ہیں. لاہور میں ایک صاحب ہیں, انہوں نے اپنے اوپر ایک کتاب لکھی, اس کا نام تھا مہاتما بدھ. حالانکہ اس کتاب کا نام مہاتما خود ہونا چاہیے تھا, لیکن انہوں نے مہاتما بدھ کے نام سے وہ کتاب لکھی. اور آج کل وہ ایک جوکرز کے پروگرام میں آتے ہیں اور ان پر جگتیں کی جاتی ہیں اور ان کو کافی اچھے طریقے سے ان کی خاطر مدارات ہوتی ہے. تو میرے خیال میں اب مجھے بس کرنا ہے, چاہے کھانا لیٹ ہو رہا ہو, کچھ بھی ہوتا ہے نا. جب ابن انشا نے لکھا ہے ایک جگہ پہ, وہ کہتے ہیں کہ ان کے ایک خاکہ ان کا بڑا زبردست, استاد مرحوم عنوان ہے اس کا خاکے کا. وہ اگر آپ نے نہیں پڑھا تو میری فرمائش پہ وہ ضرور پڑھے. وہ ابن انشا کی بیسٹ تحریروں میں سے ایک تحریر ہے کہ استاد مرحوم بڑے منکسر المزاج تھے, اپنے نام کے ساتھ ننگے اسلاف لکھا کرتے تھے. ان کی دیکھا دیکھی دوسروں نے بھی ان کے نام کے ساتھ ننگے اسلاف لکھنا شروع کر دیا. استاد کو نام و نمود سے کوئی نہیں تھی, چنانچہ ایک دفعہ محلے میں مشاعرہ تھا تو لڑکے بالے زبردستی ان کو لے گئے مشاعرے میں. استاد نے مطلع پڑھا تو جب دیکھا صاحب صدر کی مسند کی طرف داد لینے کے لیے تو پتہ چلا کہ ابھی صاحب صدر تشریف نہیں لائے تھے. یعنی آپ سمجھ گئے ہوں گے کہ استاد مرحوم کو مشاعرے سے پہلے وقت گزاری کے لیے جو کہا جاتا ہے, تو اس وقت میں بھی استاد مرحوم ہی ہوں اس وقت. تھینک یو, خدا حافظ.
عطاء قاسمی صاحب, آپ کے دلچسپ اور خوبصورت خیالات کے اظہار کا بہت بہت شکریہ. ہم سب تہہ دل سے آپ کے بہت ممنون ہیں. یو بن ویری کائنڈ. Up next is our dance performance, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank our honorable guests for joining us today and adding such great fervor to the inauguration of the event. Thank you so much, all of you. Just in a while, we are going to have a dance performance on Mohtarma Kishwar Nahid Sahiba's poem, Hum Gunegar Auratein. ابھی ہم تھوڑی ہی دیر میں محترمہ کشور ناہید صاحبہ کی نظم ہم گنہگار عورتیں, اس پہ ایک ڈانس پرفارمنس کرنے والے ہیں. آپ سب سے گزارش ہے کہ آپ سب ہال ہی میں رہیے اور اپنی جگہوں پر برقرار رہیے. Ladies and gentlemen, as they say, dance is the hidden language of the soul, and poetry is an echo asking a shadow to dance. Now it's time for a performance on Kishwar Nahid's poem Hum Gunegar Auratein by Faryal Amar Aslam. It's choreographed and introduced by Indu Mitta. Kishwar Nahid is one of the best known feminist poets of Pakistan. Her first collection of poetry, La Begoya, won the prestigious Adamji Prize of Literature. She founded an organization named Hawa, Eve, whose goal is to help women without an independent income to become financially independent through cottage industries and handicrafts. Faryal Amal Aslam. Dr. Faryal Amal Aslam is a social cultural anthropologist and dance history scholar by training, a classical dancer by inclination, and a development studies researcher by profession. Indu Mitta. Indu graduated with an MA Philosophy from Delhi University in 1951 and moving to Pakistan when she married, taught at the Government College for Women, Rawalpindi. As a dancer, choreographer, she has developed a style of Bharatnatyam, all on her own. She has written, directed, and received national awards for historical musics. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would request Indumitta to please come on the stage to give her introduction.
May I stand a little to the side? Mic ऐसे कर दे, मैं पीछे नहीं खड़ी हो सकती, वो लगी हुई। मुअज़्ज़िज़ हाज़रीन, आदाब अर्ज़ है मेरी तरफ से और मेरी उस शागिर्द से, मज़मून को शौक़ की शागिर्द से जो आपके सामने पेश होगी, बल्कि मज़मून शौक़ के सब शागिर्दों की तरफ से जो कुछ यहाँ भी हैं और कुछ अपने घरों में भी हैं। इस तरीक़े से मैं जब से इस्लामाबाद आई हूँ, अपने शागिर्दों को पेश करते हुए उनका काम मैं इसी तरह से शुरू करती थी। But today I am going to speak the rest of it in English because there are too many Ahle Zuban here, among whom I am not, और उनके कानों को तकलीफ़ होगी अगर मैंने अपनी पैदल उर्दू में ज़्यादा बातें की। मैं ज़्यादा नहीं करना चाहती हूँ। मुझे कहा गया था कि कुछ रक़्स के बारे में और इस नज़्म की कोरियोग्राफी के ज़माने के बारे में किस तरह से हुई, ये आपके सामने करूँ। ये लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल्स तो इस्लामाबाद में 2 साल से हो रहे हैं, लेकिन मैं कभी भी करीब नहीं आई। Oh, I find myself speaking in Urdu. I better change. I have not thought of coming here before because it seems to me, if I have read a book, I know the author or something about him. And if I have not, or her, or if I have not read an author, then coming and gaping at him is not going to make me understand him or her. Not being a literary person, I wonder what am I doing at a literary festival, and particularly at its inauguration. Many years ago, Josh Malihabadi defined dance as Zaha ki shairi, as the poetry of movement. And a lot of people said, wah wah. But I'm sorry, I found it very derogatory that any art should be defined by some other art. I believe all the arts have a place of their own, and they are defined by their own technique, by the tools they use. Surely each of them are complete in their way. Kishwar Nahid's poem is complete. It doesn't really need anything else. But let me go back to an old myth about the arts, a story that tries to explain more than it says. In those days, the people of those days grew bored with all the arts they had. Architecture, sculpture, painting, poetry, literature, music, dance. So the gods thought about it and they were very worried, and they said, but everything is there. What else is that we can produce? We can't think of anything else. What we need is an amalgam of all the arts. And what was that? That became the dance drama. For it starts in the mind, and it brings out the sensibilities, the emotions. It has words, it has music, it has movement, it has color from painting, it uses the body, which is sculpture. And so when they all come together, it is more than just the sum of its parts. It is each one helping the other. That amalgam is like a chemical reaction. It is something almost new. has an input from all the arts. I would like to think of another point, and that is when we speak of Lord of the Dance, we think of it, we honor this idea because it is the only art which uses both space and time, all three dimensions of space and the three-dimensional body within space and movement, which means the passage of time. There was an opportunity offered to one of my students to do a dance. And she wanted to do something new, so she asked for me to help her. One of the choices was my friend Kishwar Nahid's poem, Hum Gunahgar Auratein Hain. I was rather afraid when she gave this to me, but since she wanted it, I thought it was up to me to take the challenge. I have used poetry before, even in Allama Iqbal, but usually in groups with students using mime and music or with recitation, but never a Jadeed Nazm. I went to Kishwar, who's my friend, and I said, may I have permission to use your poem? And she laughed and said, आप तो मेरी सहेली हैं, मेरी दोस्त हैं, आपको इजाज़त की क्या ज़रूरत, बहुत लोगों ने की है. I said, because you are my friend, I need your permission. So we talked about it, and she said, words are very important. I will suggest to you a girl who can sing. And she gave me a name. She said, send her to me, Kamal Iftikhar, and I will teach her the right pronunciation. It is very important. I said, yes, Kishwar, your words will be there. But once there is somebody on the stage, then it becomes my property, and you will have to forgive me if I don't want to spoil your words. I sincerely am moved by your poem, and I will try my best. After that, I asked Ustad Muhammad Ajmal, whom I've known since I came here about 20 years ago, and we sat and talked about the poem for 2 days. Normally, in modern times, choreography is done with the theme in the mind, and then the tal coming from the Ustad, the choreographer. In classical times, it was always the music that came before. But since the time of modern days, where I count from the great pioneer Uday Shankar, the choreographer, the one who visualizes the dance, comes first. And we are used to starting with the theme and the tal. But there was a poem. The theme was there. The words were there. The tal was also there. Ustadji and I recognized it as a very simple tal, only 4 beats. And the next day, we talked about it, how we would do it. The next day, we looked for a musician. I should have it. Okay, just. Kishwar herself had said to me, ye, hum. The word ye is not in the title. And I said to her, yes, Kishwar, ye, hum. I went back and looked at my notebooks, and I found I was already in 2 words mixing 2 tals. So we called Ustadji's elder brother, with whom we have worked before, Ustad Azam Bakshi, and then we realized, or I realized, I wanted Raga Savari. So we started from there, and we had the young vocalist, but my dancer was still not here. And though I could see it in my mind, I'm too old now even to try it out myself, hardly. We had another student in, and that is Faryal Amal Aslam, who you would see today. The first student, Amna Mawaz, who chose it, has had 2 occasions to do it, and today Faryal will come. We have tried to put in as many meanings as we can that were already in Kishwar's poem, and we hope you will enjoy it.
गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, जो अहले जुब्बा की तमकिनत से ना रोब खाएं, ना जान बेचे, ना सर झुकाए, ना हाथ जोड़े, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं।
Dim tom tak tom tam tak tam nom tak nom nam nam tak dim dim tak tom tom tak tam tam tak nom nom tak ta tattei tam dittei tam tattei tam dittei tam tak dim tirkit tak dim tirkit dhimmi tirkit dhimmi tak tacham tak dhite jam tattei tam tom didtei tattei tam tom didtei tak ditte gina tom tak ditte gina tom tak ditte gina tom ta
ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, कि जिनके जिस्मों की फसल बेचें जो लोग वो सरफराज ठहरें, नयाबते इम्तियाज ठहरें, वो दावरे अहले सास ठहरें, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, कि सच का परचम उठा के निकलें, कि सच का परचम उठा के निकले, सच का परचम उठा के निकले, सच 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 का कि सच का परचम उठा के निकले, तो झूठ 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 तो झूठ से शाहराए अटी मिले हैं, हर एक दहलीज पे सजाओं की दास्तानें रखी मिले हैं, जो बोल सकती जो बोल सकती जो बोल ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं। कि अब ताक़ुब में रात भी आए, कि अब ताक़ुब में रात भी आए, तो ये आँखें नहीं बुझेंगी, नहीं बुझेंगी। कि अब जो दीवार गिर चुकी है, अब जो दीवार गिर चुकी है, उसे उठाने की जिद न करना, जिद न करना। ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं। जो अहले जुब्बा की तमकिनत से ना रोब खाएं, ना जान बेचें, ना सर झुकाएं, ना हाथ जोड़े। ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं, ये हम गुनाहगार औरतें हैं।
बंद है ये, बंद है, बंद है। हाँ जी, इसको थैंक यू। Thank you, Faryal, for such a mesmerizing and thought-provoking performance. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker, Mr. Anatol Lieven, has joined us. Invite Mr. Anatol Lieven for the keynote speech, please.
Thank you so much. Hello. Can you hear me? I'm afraid I can't compare in beauty or grace with what we last saw. I'm also very sorry for being late. I was actually scheduled to give 2 keynote addresses today, the last one in Lahore. So I had to drive up on the motorway. And I had to remind myself at regular intervals what a splendid institution the motorway police is for enforcing the speeding rules so strictly, so that we had to go so relatively slowly. And I repeated that to myself every 5 minutes. You know, this is progress, this is law, this is... And I just about managed to convince myself, just about. Anyway, it's very nice to see you all. It's very nice to be here among so many old friends. And many, many thanks to Amina Syed and to OUP for inviting me, and also to the sponsors, and particularly the British Council, since I am British, for funding this festival. Well, I'd like to begin simply by pointing out the obvious, which is we're still here. A couple of years ago at the Karachi Literature Festival, I pointed out that such festivals do not occur in failed or failing states, that the very existence of such events is, in its way, evidence that Pakistan, as I often said, trundles on. Not brilliantly perhaps, but Pakistan survives. And in my book on Pakistan, Pakistan Hard Country, and I'm very happy to repeat that statement here, I argued strongly for the resilience of Pakistan as a state and a society in the face of different threats, but of course in recent years, above all, the militant threat. And I'm very happy to say, above all for Pakistan's sake and yours, but also without false modesty, that I think my analysis has been triumphantly vindicated. And perhaps it's worth pointing out something else. Later in this festival, we're going to be discussing the very hot and controversial issue of Pakistan's, the request, shall we say, for Pakistan to become involved in the conflict in Yemen, a matter on which I have very strong feelings, like I'm sure many of you, but we can discuss that later. What I'd just like to point out now is something that perhaps hasn't been widely pointed out, that it is Pakistan which is being asked to send troops to stabilize part of the Middle East, and not the other way round. Now, this is something which possibly many people would not have predicted a few years back. I mean, certainly Bush and Blair, when they launched their criminal invasion of Iraq under the cover of democratizing that state, well, they would not have seen things happening this way round. I have to say as well that, you know, in recent years, the line that Pakistan was failing, that it was collapsing, has been far too widely believed in the West, but also perhaps by some Pakistanis, and I'm glad that I did something to push back against that line. And in my book, I expressed confidence that, contrary to some of the evidence, the militant insurgency in Pakistan was being defeated and would be defeated. And I think one can say today that the insurgency has to a great extent been defeated. I mean, I was in South Waziristan on a military trip with the BBC last year, and I saw the progress that had been made there, and much more progress has been made since then. It is important from this point of view, as I also said in the book, to distinguish between insurgency and terrorism. Terrorism, I say with deep regret, and of course not only in Pakistan, is, I fear, with us now for the foreseeable future. It is extremely difficult fully to prevent, let alone eradicate. But terrorism has itself never overthrown a state. Indeed, however tragically, one has seen occasions when reaction against terrorism has actually strengthened the state. And that, I think, is what we have also seen in Pakistan as a result of the truly monstrous event in Peshawar in December. That has brought together again what we saw in 2009 and what played such a very important part in the success of the initial operations against the Pakistani Taliban in Swat, which is essentially public opinion, the political parties and the military coming, and the media, very importantly, coming together to support the campaign against the militants. And I think the evidence not only of Pakistan but of other countries is that you need that kind of alliance, you know, in order to prevail. And I very much hope that this would continue. I would very much hope that this consensus in Pakistani society could be extended beyond simply the campaign against the terrorists to a wider support, shall we say, for the bases of the modern state, modern development and progress in Pakistan, that it might be possible on this basis to draw certain contours, transcending political divisions and institutional divisions, within which Pakistanis can unite in support of basic principles of development and progress. And I mean, to give you one example, people in Pakistan, and I met some of them last year in Peshawar, by whom I've been tremendously impressed and who deserve the full support of the state and of us all, are the polio vaccination workers, who are performing an essential task at immense risk to their own lives. That surely is a principle, is a cause behind which everyone of goodwill and basic, well, even intelligence can unite. And it's possibly worth pointing out as well that this basic consensus in not by any means all of society, of course, but in a fairly extensive section of society, and certainly of educated society, is also, alas, missing, as we've seen in much of the Middle East. Now, in present circumstances, saying that somewhere is better than the Middle East, or much of the Middle East, is not perhaps very much of a compliment. But it does seem worth repeating that Pakistani institutions, imperfect though we all, well, you know a great deal better than I do how imperfect they can be, have nonetheless proved adequate, just adequate, to the crisis that they have faced, and those of many other countries have not. That has also led me to the conclusion that there is in Pakistan a great deal of course, entirely in itself justified debate about the precise form of the state, about the specific policies of the government at a given time. Given what has happened in so many other countries, it would perhaps also be worth just pausing every now and again to recall that it's very nice to have a state at all, and that if you do have a state, it's worth looking after it, because quite a lot of people don't by now, with disastrous results. And if one runs through Pakistan's institutions, its leading institutions, which have played their part in the campaign against Pakistani militancy and terrorism, one can say that when it comes to the military, despite, of course, the often negative role of the military in the past in sponsoring certain militant organizations, in recent years, unlike some other militaries, the military has held together, and at the cost of very great sacrifices of its men, has prevailed on the ground to a very great extent, despite, it must be said, often intense strains and conflicts, when it came to the loyalty and the discipline of the soldiers. Pakistani democracy, despite all its faults, some of which I have gone into at some length in my book, has fulfilled some of its essential functions. Indeed, one could say all its truly essential functions. It has acted as a safety valve for public discontent, so that discontent has not flowed into revolution, and it has permitted the change of government. Unlike, once again, so much of the Middle East, changes of government in Pakistan without the change of government necessitating the destruction of the state. You can get rid of your governments here without bringing down the whole state order. And that, by the way, was true in its own way, even of the fall of the last military ruler of Pakistan, General Musharraf, which was a great deal more orderly, with all its problems and faults, but a great deal more orderly and peaceful than the transformations, once again, one has seen in the Arab world. And Pakistan's democratic traditions from that point of view, with all their faults, have played a critical role, I think, in preserving the state and in preserving the basic consensus of society. Pakistan's economy, as we all know, has repeatedly failed to live up to what ought to be its very great potential over the years. And yet, once again, if one compares Pakistan with some countries, it does trundle along, and it has managed to ensure a basically adequate standard of living for most of the population. Not saying very much, perhaps, but more than one sees elsewhere. Now, as I always say, my editor at Penguin, when he came to edit my original manuscript, deleted the phrase Janus-faced 18 times, and he said there was still about 30 more times that I'd used it, because all of these things I've said have a negative side to them. Something that helps hold the political system together is patronage, the extraction of money from the state and its distribution by politicians through their support groups and followers. One reason why the economy always performs that bit better than the official statistics would suggest is that, of course, so much of the economy is unrecorded, which also, of course, means that it's untaxed. which also means that the state does not have the money to perform many of its essential functions, especially when it comes to promoting education. Nonetheless, it does work to make sure that enough of the population is actually fed for enough of the time. And finally, when it comes to the performance of government, execrable though it often is, I think it is worth noting that recently, both the governments of Punjab and the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, despite coming from rival political parties, indeed, in part, once again, one can point to the importance of democracy here, because they are rival political parties and need to campaign for public support. Both of them, in different ways, have taken limited, yes, slow, but nonetheless real steps to try to improve the responsiveness of the police and of the bureaucracy to public needs and public requests. Something which is absolutely critical to giving democracy in Pakistan, and indeed anywhere else, a greater content, and taking it beyond just the round of elections and so forth and so on. And so, perhaps, once again, underneath all this, there is something that is lacking, as we've seen across the Middle East, and that is a basic public consensus on the state and the nature of the state. Once again, not everybody. If it were everybody, one wouldn't have a militant movement in Pakistan. But enough, I hope, to make sure that this state, God willing, cannot actually be destroyed. It cannot be torn apart by people who have completely different visions of what the state and what Pakistan should be. Though, of course, lest anyone accuse me of complacency, I would say that naturally so much more needs to be done. Amongst other things, I would strongly urge, by the way, sorry if I keep mentioning the Middle East, but I am now based in Qatar, so this is much in my mind. But I would strongly urge, looking at the disastrous developed sectarian conflicts one has seen in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, that it is urgently necessary that the campaign against terrorism and militancy be extended to the sectarian extremists who have, after all, killed so many of their fellow countrymen in Pakistan, and also, of course, whose agenda is directly contrary to the principles on which this country was built. Not enough, I think, has been done in this regard for a whole set of reasons that are perhaps known to us all. A lot more does need to be done. Now, finally, and briefly, because I'm so sorry to have kept you all waiting, I think that the international context for Pakistan, the regional context in which this is happening, is perhaps the most favourable for a good many years. Of course, China has been much in the news recently. The growth of China and China's interest in developing Pakistan does give a real chance that this infrastructure development can become the basis for a wider economic development and even transformation in this country, though only, of course, if Pakistan is capable of meeting its side of the arrangement. Because I've already had to point out, as of course the Pakistani media has done, but 3 or 4 times in the past couple of days, that this is not a charitable gift. This is not being done out of charity, and Pakistan will need to do an enormous amount on its side. But if Pakistan can do this, it is, and in the context of, once again, God willing, let us hope, a deal between Iran and America that sticks, the lifting of international sanctions against Iran, the opening up of Iran, then it may be possible for Pakistan to think in even grander terms of its transport and infrastructural development. There would be at that point no particular reason why these routes from China, from Xinjiang, should stop at Gwadar. Why should they not go on across Iran and Turkey to Europe? Why should I not one day get into a train in Paris, now I'm going to sound like a real fantasist, and take that train all the way to Pakistan? I think one can really begin to think on a grand scale now, perhaps, in a way that has not been possible. In addition, this also, of course, would give Pakistan new openings to India, and from a stronger position when it came to negotiating trade. And it would also free the various ideas of Pakistan, as an energy and transport corridor, from dependence on what happens in Afghanistan. And although in some respects, notably when it comes to the character of the Afghan government, Afghanistan does look more hopeful than it has for a number of years. Clearly, this is not a place where one will be able to invest large sums of money with very much confidence for perhaps a considerable time to come. Finally, there is the fact that due to the winding down of the US military presence and war in Afghanistan, Pakistan is how shall I put this, of less interest to the United States than it has been. Now, this may make people in some ways uneasy, but I think in general this is a very good thing. The diminution of US interest, the diminution of US pressure allows more space for people in Pakistan to not frankly to be always looking over their shoulder, always reacting, always getting angry, often with good reason, and to basically concentrate on their own affairs. And also to play a positive role in their own region without once again having to react so much to other people. So if, therefore, Pakistan can avoid both entanglement in the war in Yemen and entanglement in other people's proxy wars. Because, of course, one of the reasons why it is so necessary to strengthen Pakistan at home is precisely to reduce this old dependency on other people and therefore on other people's agendas, and, alas, sometimes involvement in other people's wars. But if Pakistan can keep out of Yemen, and, of course, if, pray God, there is no new international terrorist attack which creates a new crisis involving the USA, India, or both, I think that with all due caution and qualifications, there is a real chance that, having now effectively won the war against militant insurgency, Pakistan will be able to win the peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lieven, for enlightening us with your views. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just request you to be seated for a while. We would like to especially thank USAID-funded Pakistan Reading Project, the US Embassy, the Embassy of France, the Italian Embassy, British Council, American Institute of Pakistan Studies, the Beacon House School Group, Awaz, Getz Pharma, and Dara Bashir, Manhattan International, for being our partners in the 3rd Islamabad Literature Festival. Honorable guests, I hope you have you've had a great time. Thank you for being a part of the ceremony. The upcoming 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and today's evening will be filled with numerous literary sessions on a variety of subjects with echoes of the past and sounds of the present to discern a future for navigating our path into the world of literature and thus tapping into the deep origins of the nature and mankind. We look forward to seeing you again and are confident that the festival will be stimulating, informative, and prove a unique literary experience for everyone. Now we're going to have simultaneous sessions here in the Margala Hall, Sangam Hall, and Boardroom. I hope you have the copy of the program to provide you an overview of the entire event and the sessions taking place in each of the halls. We have 15 minutes to begin our next session here in the Margala Hall, He, She, Or, where Shema Sayyed will be in conversation with Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, author of Me Hijra, Me Lakshmi. In the Sangam Hall, screening of Lives Worth Living and discussion with the US filmmakers Alison Gilkey and Eric Noodle will take place, and the session will be moderated by Mariam Qasim. In the boardroom, 2 sessions of 30-minute duration each will take place. कहाँ कहाँ से गुजरे मेरी ज़िंदगी की कहानी. The panelists are Hamara Khaliq and Masood Ashar, and this will be moderated by Zahida Hina. And winner of the KLF Best Fiction Prize from Minwala, in conversation with Chandana Minhas, author of Survival Tips for Lunatics, shall take place. Wish you a very pleasant and an enjoyable evening ahead. Thank you very much, and Allah Hafiz.